And we're going to talk about Measure M for LA County
Measure
voters.
M is a no. It's a no and a no and a no.
It needs a 2/3, too, which is one thing good.
And let me tell you, we've gone through enough of these scams. This would raise the sales tax by a half-cent next year, then raise it another half-cent in the year 2039 for a total of a 1-cent raise, and it would be permanent. It would never end. And it's going to go for a whole list of transportation projects, but mostly it's for new subway and rail line projects. By the way, I remember last time we did a story, and Ray, maybe see if you could find this and print it out again. The word was in the LA Times that ridership on these rail lines was going down.
Yes, we did do that story.
It was going down. So you have less of a demand, so they're building more rail lines. They're not doing much for the roads. It's the gold line, the purple line, the Crenshaw line, the orange line, the green line, and they're going to fix one freeway interchange, the 57 and the 60, and then they're going to finish off the 71 freeway in Rio Rancho Road, way out there. They're also going to burrow a transit tunnel under the Sepulveda Pass.
Oh, see, that's for you.
What's that going to cost?
That's for cars? I guess it is.
No, transit tunnel, maybe some kind of train.
Oh.
Is that because remember they had well, we'll see. We'll talk with Mayor John.
Yeah, Measure M is going to create a new half-cent sales tax with no end date. Now, if you live in LA County right now, the bottom line is the bottom line base rate is 9%. I want to remind everybody of that. There are spots in LA County where it's higher because they can add local extras on top of it. So, yeah.
We have the highest taxes in the nation. We'll tell you that every day of your life. You're paying the highest taxes. They should have plenty of money to fix the roads and expand the roads. Why would you waste more money on rail lines when fewer and fewer people use them? It's just shocking to me. Absolutely shocking. I don't know who gets these rail contracts, but it's got to be politically connected people who are making a fortune building rail cars and rail lines that nobody uses and nobody wants. And by the way, none of them have eased the traffic. None of them.
Well, believe it or not, a coalition of political officials has come out against Measure M because all the union people and politicians, oh, yeah, this is what we need. We're going to talk to one of them. The Beverly Hills mayor is coming on the show right now, John Mirisch.
John Mirisch, welcome to the John and Ken Show.
Thank you so much.
So why are you against this 1-cent sales tax increase?
I think you articulated a lot of good reasons. It's a forever tax, and forever is a long, long time. There's Measure M maybe should stand for myth, because the myth that is being propagated is, and I understand where it comes from. People are frustrated with traffic, and so when they do their polling, they'll ask people, do you hate traffic? Yeah, I hate traffic. Would you pay a half-cent to avoid traffic? Yeah. The problem is it's a myth that what they are planning on doing will in any meaningful way alleviate our traffic situation. But they're playing on that to try to get us to tax ourselves even more. Do you know that Metro has raised in the past taxes 3 times? Traffic hasn't gotten better. As you pointed out, ridership has decreased. Fool me once, shame on me, but fool me 4 times?
Yeah, I know. People always fall for this crap because they don't know. They don't know that it doesn't relieve traffic, and they're already taxed at a record rate.
They don't know, and they believe the political spending. I believe there's $11 million of money out there to support this, and you can guess where most of it comes from, special interest groups, engineering companies, construction companies, and that sort of thing. And, of course, it's a good investment because, get this, the tax is estimated to raise over $100 billion within the next few decades. That's a lot of money. And for them to be spending it on, as you correctly point out, rail lines, which may themselves be obsolete within a few years, is really not forward thinking. It's not a good use of our money. It's a perfect example of governmental wasteful spending.
There's a big headline today in one of the newspapers that business leaders have joined union officials to come out and support this. An unlikely alliance.
Well, it's not an unlikely alliance. It's an unholy alliance is what it is. You've heard of the military-industrial complex. There's a transportation construction industrial complex, and for whatever reason, the chambers of commerce types have gotten together with the unions who, always talk about good jobs and construction and all of that, and they don't care what's being built. The fact of the matter is this is a measure which was designed with one goal in mind. They were spreading crumbs and scraps throughout the county to try to garner support to get the tax passed. In fact, the MTA's job should be to increase mobility, and it seems they're more concerned with sucking up tax dollars and spending it than in actually doing what they should be, which is increasing mobility. Because I can tell you they're not looking at all to modern technologies and developing and emerging transportation technologies such as autonomous vehicles, which actually do have the potential to help solve traffic.
Do you ever talk to people who are on the Metropolitan Transportation Authority Board?
I do. I mean, there's some of my colleagues, and I have to tell you that part of this problem is the way that the board is structured. The board is structured in such a way that there are 5 county supervisors who represent the entire county, and then you have 4 representatives from the city of Los Angeles, which are all controlled by the mayor of L.A., and then 4 for everybody else.
Well, they know that traffic has not decreased since they built all these rail lines,
yep.
And they know that ridership has gone down. So what's the justification for building more rail lines that few people will use and that will not make a dent in the traffic problem?
They want to be at a ribbon cutting for a rail line. It's sexy. I don't know. I mean, beats me. I mean, the fact of the matter is you've got everyone from the Jarvis Taxpayer Association who is opposed to this on the right to the Bus Riders Union. These are the people who actually use public transportation and depend on it the most. They understand that the more rail you build, you're going to decrease the bus service, and that's going to impact their ability to get from point A to point B. It doesn't make any sense. It is yet another money grab, and it is something, though, that they are able to package in a way that seems appealing because everyone hates traffic. And so all they need to do is say, hey, vote for this and we'll reduce traffic. And again, that's a big M for myth.
Now, we have the story from January, which says it was in the L.A. Times. The Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the region's largest carrier, lost more than 10% of its boardings from 2006 to 2015, a decline that appears to be accelerating. Despite a $9 billion investment in new light rail and subway lines, Metro now has fewer boardings than it did 3 decades ago when buses were the only option.
Wait, fewer boardings than 3 decades ago? I mean,
that is an enormous stat.
How many miles of rail lines have they built in the last 30 years, and they have fewer people taking the trains?
Well, not only that, the Blue Line, by the way, is among the most dangerous rail lines in the country. None of it makes any sense, and yet, you're right, the L.A. Times wrote that, and they talked about a ridership slump, and yet the Times has been one of the biggest boosters of this measure. If you read their editorial, none of it makes any sense at all. It's as said, it's as if people somehow have been, I don't know, bamboozled.
Well, because the commercials come with the promises that this will clear up all the bottlenecks and solve all of our transit issues, and people buy this stuff.
Okay, you pointed out the Sepulveda Pass. You asked what that would cost, and I can tell you it would cost close to $10 billion. That's right, billion with a B.
The transit tunnel.
The transit tunnel. So here's the thing. Give you a good example as to why we should be looking to leveraging future technologies. And by the way, the CEO of Metro, Phil Washington, has said, well, we need all this money because we're building for the next 100 years. Well, if you're building for the next 100 years, don't just look to the past. You've got to look to the future. Autonomous vehicles, and there are people who have said if we would have a autonomous vehicle-only lane on the 405, which basically takes you from where the Sepulveda Pass tunnel wants to go, that could increase capacity exponentially. And, of course, then you wouldn't need to spend $10 billion on a Sepulveda Pass tunnel. But, by the way, by the time they start building this tunnel, we're looking at 2, 3, 4 decades from now. A lot is going to happen, and there's a lot of disruptive, in a good sense, and transformative technology that's available. We need to be looking at that to leverage existing infrastructure.
Why would autonomous vehicles relieve traffic?
So imagine this. If you had a fleet of vehicles that would, include public forms of public transportation. I'm sure you've driven. When you drive on the 405, how often do you see someone brake, and then that brake causes a ripple effect, and then someone else isn't paying attention, and the ripple effect causes another ripple. Once autonomous vehicles are ready for prime time, and it's not going to be as long as everybody thinks, you won't have any of that. The cars will be synced with each
You've
other.
eliminated human error.
Right, because you won't have idiots braking to look at some guy changing a tire on the shoulder.
Some idiot looking at their phone while they're driving, and then they have to brake because they got too close.
Right, for example, and that's the way traffic works. It almost goes in waves, and it's very interesting. I saw a very good presentation, again, a scholarly one from a professor at USC who you might consider also having on the show. And it was, he went and showed exactly how all of these things, the boardings were decreased, the increased expense of rail had not done anything to alleviate traffic. That's Ronald Moore II, I believe. And, again, it's a little bit like there's a kind of a mass psychosis that, well, if we just spend more money on rail, we're going to solve our problems. To be quite honest, what Metro is proposing, what the MTA is proposing now, a colleague of mine who's in the South Bay, a transportation expert, said this would be a great plan for the turn of the century. And by that, I don't mean the turn of the 20th to the 21st century. I mean the turn of the 19th to the 20th
Yeah, it's like Jerry
century.
Brown and his high-speed rail. Well, Mayor, thanks for talking to us. We appreciate it.
John Mirisch from Beverly Hills.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's a no on Measure M. And again, the good thing is it has to get a 2/3. They tried this 4 years ago and failed. We hope they will fail again. It's all on the voter guide on the website for those of you in L.A. County. More coming up.
John and Ken, KFI. Heather Jordan is news.